Hey everybody, thanks for coming to learn how to be prepared. And today we're going to be talking about my daughter's emergency kit. She goes to a private school, which allows her to have a comprehensive kit. If your student goes to a public school, I would recommend talking to the administrators. Obviously, protecting your kid's emergency kit in a public school situation might be a little different. With my daughter's school, I have the advantage of being able to get the whole school on board, I hope, with being prepared and preparing for an emergency. Here in Portland, earthquakes are our primary emergency, so we're going to go ahead and focus on that. On earthquakes, first thing I'd like to do is an unpaid promotion for this book. It's a really cool book. It's called Earthquakes. ISBN number is 07922822027, and written by Ellen J. Prager. And we got it from the National Geographic book sale a couple of years ago, and it's a really good book. It gives basic tectonic science, a sense to kids that, hey, this happens all the time, and there's nothing really to worry about. And so, great book. Check it out. Onto the actual emergency kit. I really think it's important that you use a bag that you already have. If you don't have a bag, go to a thrift store and buy a bag. You're making this kit from the ground up. If you're not into making a kit from the ground up, you can go to somewhere like the Portland Preparedness Center, which that's the store on our website, and just buy a ready-made kit. There are some things to think about with kids that we'll talk about that are a little bit different. My daughter's school is a private school. It meets in a basement, and I think that it's really important for her to have a helmet next to her desk or under her chair that she knows that she can use in an emergency. If the ground starts shaking, I want her to get under that desk and put the helmet on. She knows this. We've talked about this. We've trained this, and this is what's important. So she's going to have a helmet. It's a good size. It's not a perfect fit for bicycle riding anymore, but will protect her head in an earthquake. So let's get to the basic contents of the bag. Regular backpack. It's important for them to be able to grab it and go. I understand that public schools teach that during a fire drill you don't take anything with you. You just get out of the building. I don't necessarily agree. I think getting out of the building is a priority, but I also think that placing emergency supplies where students who are old enough to understand can get them themselves, or to make it a priority for educators to take an emergency kit with them and go. An educator's kit is a whole different video we'll do on another day. So opening up our bag here, it was also important to remember how heavy it is. Can she carry it around? My daughter's not the biggest girl on the earth, so she has limited ability to carry things around. I picked up a Lifeline first aid kit. You can get these just about anywhere anymore. You can get them from regular grocery stores, Walmart. This one in particular we got from Sportsman's. Do some price checking. Where's the cheapest place you're going to get your first aid kit? For a kid's emergency kit, again, they're going to use it if an emergency happens. If an emergency doesn't happen, hopefully their educator's going to have a comprehensive first aid kit. It's a real basic first aid kit. It's got some Band-Aids, some wound wipes, an emergency whistle, and I've added to it some additional wound wipes, and I've also added some 200 CK arnica, which is what you really want to use for trauma. I recommend looking that up yourself. Don't take just my word for it. I'm not a doctor. But I put arnica in hers, and she knows how to use it. And I think that's pretty important. I use a carabiner to make sure that it's attached to the bag so it doesn't get lost. Also, there's a secondary whistle, and I think that teaching your kid to use a whistle is extremely important. So a small 30-piece first aid kit it's going to make her feel better. Remember, we're planning that my kid's the only kid with an emergency kit. That's what I plan for. Also a watch, okay, so that she knows how to stay in touch with time. I explained to her about the importance of time and knowing how long she's at a scene and how long things are going on. Being that my daughter's at a private school, I don't have to worry about a freaky weapons policy. No, she doesn't have a gun, but she does have a multi-tool, and on that multi-tool is a knife, and we talked about that. And she knows how to use it. It's important to teach your kids how to use this emergency kit before You just leave it there with them in hopes that if something happens, they'll remember to grab it. Remember, you got to practice. In the next compartment here, we've got an emergency blanket, which I've explained to her. One of the greatest things about it is that it can be used for signaling, and an emergency blanket needs emergency poncho. We live in Portland. It rains a lot here, and that should do it for this compartment. Yep. Okay. Moving on. We've only got 10 minutes for a YouTube video, I believe. An umbrella, because a poncho, you don't want to rely on just one redundancy as much as you can. A good book. In this case, we've got an HP book, Sorcerer's Stone, one she reads and we know that she likes, okay, because she might be stuck there for a while. We want her to be able to be occupied. I gave her 2 lights. An area light. This one's made by Rayovac, and it uses AAA or AA batteries. Make sure that anything that you put in your kit uses the same batteries. Don't give your kid a variety of batteries, and don't store the items with the batteries in them. Teach your child how to put the batteries in the item. So this is an area light. It does function as a spotlight, but it's really an area light. These are little dynamo shake lights from China. They are not only just shake lights, but it's not a very powerful LED, but it does what it's supposed to do. But you can also put a AA battery in here for a longer life, and we talked about that too. Remember, let your kid try it. They've got to know how to use this stuff if something happens. It's not going to be the time to start teaching them. Okay. In her bag, she has a secondary bag with some tissues, which we've explained can be used as toiletries, some hot hands, in case it's cold. It is winter time's upon us. The city of Portland has these neat fold-out maps, and you can buy these probably at a local bookstore. I've marked on her map where her school is, where her grandmother's house is, where our house is. And we've talked about orientation in an urban environment. We've talked about how things aren't going to look the same in an earthquake. I've also included a complete list of phone numbers for her use. Also, her grandmother's address, which is closest to the school and not across bridges, our address, and her father's address. I've also included for her a radio guide, what channel she should be on. I've explained to her how to use her radio. I really like these Motorola Talkabouts because they don't require charging. They use AA batteries. You can store them without batteries in them, which is really important, because if you store a chargeable radio in an emergency kit, and it's going to decrease its charge over time unless you take the battery off, and even then, can you really rely on it? With something that operates on batteries, I can rely on it. I've preset it to the appropriate channel for her, and we talked about how to change the channels and how to use the device. We used it on a regular basis in other things. A bite stick is important. What if it's not in the wintertime? She might get insect bites. She needs to know how to take care of that. Lots of batteries, okay? We don't know how long we're going to be separated. We need to make sure our devices are working. Batteries are key. Use high-end batteries. Don't skimp on the batteries. That's a good rule of thumb. She's gluten-free. Okay, so remember, traditional foods might be difficult, traditional preparedness foods. Whole Foods has this great company called Organic Just Fruit Munchies, 100% natural. They're freeze-dried, organic, non-GMO fruit. And this will last a really, really long time. And this can be in there. And we talked about this being the first thing she goes to. And it's gluten-free. Also, some just fruit bars. At the end of the school year, we'll take these out and eat them. Okay? So we can go through those. As a last ditch, we've got a Mayday energy cookie. Not the greatest thing in the world, and certainly not gluten-free. But would you rather have a hungry kid or a dead kid? So we talked about this being her last ditch in food. And water. You can do water in packets or in bottles. I've got 3 of these 23.5-ounce bottles. It's not the best that it can be, but she needs to be able to carry her bag. That is the most important thing. So we talked about rationing her water supply. And then, of course, we've got an extra set of clothes, which, I think you need an extra jacket, an extra pair of pants, a couple pairs of socks, and that about covers it. It doesn't need to be extreme, For my daughter, her grandmother lives not far away from the school, so I know that that's part of our communications plan. She's going to go to her grandmother's house if something happens. And so that's it for Learn How to Be Prepared. This was my daughter's first emergency kit. And make a kit for your school. I can't tell you how important it is. And communicate with your teachers about where you're going to store that kit and the procedure for taking that kit in an emergency. And make sure that your kid knows it too. LearnHowToBePrepared.com or check us out on Facebook. Take care.